Well, hello, Nativity Bible heads. It is Dr. Wayne, and it is time for Sunday Morning Power Bible Study. Yes, we're going to put this on Saturday night also, but boy, have we got a conclusion to our Pentecost season, our season of after Pentecost, technically. Pentecost isn't actually a season. Pentecost is a day. Pentecost is actually just the last Sunday of Easter tide, okay? And then we have this 26 weeks or so of after Pentecost. So this isn't the season of Pentecost. This is just that season that is unnamed that comes after Pentecost. It really is unnamed. We are celebrating the reign of Christ, the kingship of Christ. I'm preaching today also, so I'm still, I don't want to spill the beans on that one, right? So what we've got is a little bit of 2 Samuel chapter 23 now, and then we're going to have Psalm 132, a little bit from the first chapter of the book of Revelation, and then something from the Gospel of John, chapter 18, where Jesus and Pilate are having a philosophical conversation, shall we say. So, starting with 2 Samuel, we're in chapter 23, verses 1 through 7. These are the last words of David. Okay. So, why are we even hearing this? Because it fits that theme of the reign of Christ, the kingship of Christ, because his kingship follows up it's like a severe upgrade, if you shall say, from the kingship of David, okay? If you actually read through 1st and 2nd Samuel, you'll find that it's really all about David. Yes, Saul came before him. Yes, Samuel anointed Saul and then David. But remember last week we had the song of Hannah, and that was Hannah, the mother of Samuel. And now we have these last words of David. Another psalm, another song, if you will. So the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel actually it's just one book. It's just so long that they divided it into two. It's basically bracketed off by poetry. Okay, the oracle of David, son of Jesse, the oracle of the man whom God exalted. Now, this use of the words oracle of David, it's not uncommon for ancient writers to put into the mouth of a dying hero an oracle of God. All of a sudden, they're like speaking like a prophet, even though they weren't technically a prophet during their lifetime, and most of them were just harassed by prophets, if you think about it. The last words of Jacob are an oracle. The last words of Moses in Deuteronomy are an oracle. So this is a standard way of putting the last words of somebody out there to speak prophetically. Okay. The anointed of the God of Jacob, the favorite of the strong one of Israel. Okay, there's that word anointed. Anointed. Anytime we see the word anointed, especially translated as anointed, we got to remember what's the underlying Hebrew word there? Yeah, Messiah, Mashiach, okay? The anointed, the Messiah of the God of Jacob. Another reason why we see the whole messianic expectation started with David, and with David's passing, he was the one who had been seen as the anointed one, and since his line was promised to continue forever, and yet with the exile threatened that, but then they got their land back, but never quite the kingship that they wanted. But the word anointed always brings up messianic ideas. The Spirit of the Lord speaks through me. His word is upon my tongue. Again, these are the way a prophet would speak. The God of Israel has spoken. The Rock of Israel has said to me, one who rules over people justly, ruling in the fear of God, is like the light of morning, like the sun rising on a cloudless morning, gleaming from the rain on a grassy land. Okay, boy, this sounds an awful lot like a wisdom proverb. That's because it kind of is. Wisdom writing does a lot of comparing of like the good versus the bad, okay, that kind of thing, and putting it in glossy, fun language, okay, and that's basically what we've got here, because we're gonna get the opposite. We always get I mean, it's like Psalm 1. If you look at the very first Psalm, it's that thing that says, "Oh, the godful are like this, and the godless are like this. The godful and the godless." Well, here was like, how does that apply to the king? That's kind of like what's going on here. Is not my house like this with God? Okay, that's a good way of like saying it almost feels like he's quoting something else, and then stopping to say, now, isn't this what I've done? Kind of. Is not my house like this with God? For he has made with me an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and secure. This everlasting covenant, this is that promise of the reignship of a Davidic heir and all of that. That thing which created the messianic expectation fulfilled by Jesus. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Will he not cause to prosper all my help and my desire? So in these asking of these questions, he's like put on pause this little wisdom saying, where he had said, one who rules over people justly, ruling in the fear of God, is like the light of the morning, like the rising sun of the cloudless morning, gleaming from the land or grassy land. Now, he's going to do the flip side of that. Will he not cause a prosper all my, and so that's the end of the aside, if you will. Then, but the godless are all like thorns that are thrown away, for they cannot be picked up with the hand. So here you're getting so the one who rules over people justly, and now we're talking about the godless, okay? This is an expression, a typical wisdom saying, which is a setup, and then you get the flip side, okay? This is the flip side. But the godless are like the thorns that are thrown away, for they cannot be picked up with the hand. To touch them, one uses an iron bar or the shaft of a spear, which is to say that they're worthless, and all they needed to do is just be destroyed. And they are entirely consumed in fire on the spot. That's the end of the reading, yeah. So no, David, last words, I don't know. When the final chapters of Samuel got put together, it kind of like occurs as like for example, chapter 22, all it was a quoting of Psalm 18, okay, and then you have this, and then what happens then in verses 8 to the end of the book, or to the end of the chapter, is like an appendix of David's cabinet, and then in chapter 24, we have this thing about a census that David had done. In fact, David is, again, alive in chapter 24, where David enacts a census, and it's like, so this is like a part of an appendix. The appendix, one of those additions at the end of the book that like, oh well, can't throw anything away. Let's just put it in the appendix. Yeah, because they don't do a good job of like making any narrative flow. But the only reason why we're hearing these words of King David is because of the fact that the kingship that Christ fulfills, the idea of it was earthly expressed previously with David's reign. That's all. So let us move on to Psalm 132. Now, Psalm 132 is a psalm of psalms were done for different purposes. This psalm appears to be they would sing these things, chant them or whatever on their pilgrimage to the temple a lot of the times. In the days when they had the ark would be processed in, and so you'll see references to that. So this is what we have in Psalm 132. Lord, remember David and all the hardships he endured, how he swore an oath to the Lord and vowed a vow to the mighty one of Jacob. So a lot of psalms have this petitional quality in that they're asking God to do something, okay? And then there's this quote, like, remember, I will not come under the roof of my house, nor climb up into my bed. I will not allow my eyes to sleep, nor let my eyelids slumber, until I find a place for the Lord, a dwelling for the mighty one of Jacob. Okay, until I find a place for the Lord. So, remember, David had the idea of building the temple. It got nixed by who? Well, God. And God said, I didn't ask for a house. Remember who did finally build the temple? Yeah, Solomon. So this is remembering that fondly and giving him credit for wanting to do that, even though he didn't actually build the Lord a house. And then in verse 6, the ark. We heard it was in Ephratah. We found it in the fields of Jearim. This is a reference to the time when the ark had been captured by the Philistines, and it was in hiding. It was being hidden someplace, but they had found it somehow in a battle where they had access to a place. It's like, bring it on. Well, there came a time when it then processed to Jerusalem. David was responsible for the processing of the ark to Jerusalem to be placed in the temple, and this is a psalm which fondly remembers that and historically recalls those events in a poem that celebrates a pilgrimage to the temple. Okay, let us go to God's dwelling place. Let us fall upon our knees before his footstool. See, the temple. Arise, O Lord, into your resting place, you and the ark of your strength. Let your priests be clothed with righteousness. Let your faithful people sing with joy. For your servant David's sake, do not turn away the face of your anointed. Like there again, anointed. That's Messiah in Hebrew, right? The Lord has sworn an oath to David. In truth, he will not break it. A reference to that eternal prosperity of the Davidic line, right? A son, the fruit of your body, will I set upon the throne. So again, during Christ the King Sunday, we cannot help but think, why are we bringing up this imagery from the Old Testament? Because that's what David started that Jesus fulfilled. Okay? if your children, oh, and here's the Deuteronomic condition. If your children keep my covenant and my testimonies that I shall teach them, their children will sit upon your throne forevermore. This is that. So there was this double-edged sword of the promise of God to the Davidic line. There was one side of it that said, "Oh, the Lord's commitment to the Davidic line is unbreachable. It is happening. That's just the way it's going down." And then we get a lot of stuff that says, "Well, but if you screw up, I don't know." Such expresses the time when of exile. So I don't know that that we can work on that much more right now. But just know that the promise was like a double-edged sword. In one sense, it felt conditional or unconditional, and then in the other side, it felt rather conditional. Like, but if you mess up, then I don't know. All bets are off. Because if your children keep my covenant and my testimonies that I shall teach them, their children will sit upon your throne forevermore. Seems like a condition to me. Okay, verses 14 and following. For the Lord has chosen Zion. He has desired her for his habitation. Remember, Zion was the name of the mount. The mound. It's not really a mountain. It's just a high place there in amongst the Jerusalem hills. Zion was where the temple was built. He has desired for her. This shall be my resting place forever. Here we have it coming out in first person, God speaking. This shall be my resting place forever. Here will I dwell, for I delight in her. I will surely bless her provisions and satisfy her poor with bread. This is definitely a reference to a time when the temple was thriving, and it was a place where the sacrifices were done, and a lot of the sacrifices, the food was actually festival food. It was something that people were invited to partake of. Verse 17, I will clothe her priests with salvation, and her faithful people will rejoice and sing. There will I make the horn of David flourish. I have prepared a lamp for my anointed Messiah. As for his enemies, I will clothe them. Oh, there we go. This is one of those little wisdom things of, as for his enemies, I will clothe them with shame. But as for him, his crown will shine. Very good. Very good to have something like that on Christ the King Sunday, because what it does is it points forward to the glory that we find with Jesus. Now, as we move into the New Testament, we have two readings, the one from Revelation and the one from John. Now, I'm going to read the one from the Gospel first and then go back to the one in Revelation, because it's a little bit more easy to understand in that arrangement. So, John chapter 18, verses 33 to 37. Now, this is that part of John's Gospel where, well, it's during the Passion, the Passion of Christ, the arrest and the crucifixion and all of that. This is that scene that happens between Jesus and Pilate after Jesus had been taken to Annas and Caiaphas, and he had Peter and his denial and all that. And then Jesus is before Pilate, and they have this conversation. Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Now, when Pilate's asking this, he just has no, he really is clueless, okay? He's ignorant is a good way of saying it. He's ignorant. He doesn't really care about the religious significance. He doesn't really care for the eternal realities. He's very much mired in categories of this world. Ooh, yeah, think about that. Mired in categories of this world. Are you the king of the Jews? He's actually, he's not asking like, are you like the spiritual king of this spiritual body? No, he's not. He's asking, are you a political king? Okay, that's the realm that he operated. Jesus answered, do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me? So his reply is, okay, and anytime there's questions in the Gospel of John, anytime there's questions, the questions are only intended to be, they're only put there as a springboard so we can hear Jesus reveal something much bigger than what the original intent was of the questioner, okay? The questioner never gets the answer, or the answer, at least not even an easy answer, not the answer they want. What they get is a huge kind of a reality, and that's where Jesus is taking this conversation, this is what he does, okay? Jesus answered, do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me? It's as though he's saying, is this a concern? Is this your concern? Or are you expressing a concern of the people? Pilate replied, I am not a Jew, am I? Which is interesting. I was like, I don't understand why he would ask that question. It's like Jesus isn't accusing him of being a Jew. So, yeah. Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done? I think it's an expression of frustration on Pilate's part. Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done? It's like. I think it's Pilate's way of saying, all I know is this has nothing to do with me. This seems to be something that's a little bit of just a conflict between you and your Jewish friends. Yeah, your own people handed you over to me. What have you done? Yeah, so he's really trying to, I think he's just trying to get down to like, no, seriously, dude, what'd you do? Because you've really pissed off your people, okay? What have you done? Jesus answered, my kingdom is not from this world. Oh, so now Jesus goes into like, he is going to play the king word, but only a king would have a kingdom, right? Yeah, but yet, he doesn't actually come out and say that because that could be considered blasphemy. Mm-hmm. My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. Pause there. Remember the scene in the Garden of Gethsemane where Peter, we don't know exactly if it's Peter or not. I think it did. Anyway, remember one of the disciples draws a sword and cuts off the ear of one of the soldiers, and then Jesus puts it back. There was some element of fighting, but Jesus put a stop to it already, okay? And this is why he can say this now. My followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here. So in reality, Jesus is saying, yes, I'm a king, but more of a king than you can ever imagine, okay? I'm not just king of a people. I am not king of a territory. I am not the king of, Rome or whatever. I am a king of a much bigger sphere of influence than you can ever imagine, Pilate. So, booyah. Pilate asked him, so you are a king? And Jesus answered, you say that I am a king. When he says this, the other Gospels, the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus answers this and he says, you say so, or you yourself say. You yourself say this. I mean, yeah, go ahead, say it, okay? You say that I'm a king. And I think when he's saying that, it's just, Jesus has to, the words are intended to make sure that Jesus is not saying something that will directly have him commit a sin like blasphemy, okay? It's not blatantly anyway. And then he says, for this, so he says, you say that I am a king. For this I was born. Okay, so what's the this? I think the this is a reference to all of this. Remember, this is from that second part of John's Gospel, considered to be we have the book of signs and the book of glory. This is that time of glory, okay? So Jesus is basically saying that all of my life is why I was born. Everything that I've done so far, even those things that have caused to bring me in front of you, like a criminal. All of that is is what I was born for. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world. So it's like, okay, now we're getting the pre-existent Christ perspective being voiced by Jesus. And this is totally outside the realm of what Pilate could even comprehend, okay? This is typical of question-answer discourse in the Gospel of John. This is what our writer uses to get us to see what he's trying to get across, okay? For this I came into the world to testify to the truth. So the word for truth here is the essence of the reality that we perceive in the world. The circumstances, our feelings, emotions, our judgments around all of that is just that. It's all a subjective reality. We decide on what we think of it. The truth doesn't need that. The truth is that which is, okay, well, here's the reality regardless of what we think, okay? You think it's this, but Jesus is saying, no, in reality, here's the truth. And what was that truth? The truth is that political powers and political leaders and the people who say they are in power, or the people who we recognize as being powerful in the world, aren't really powerful. They're really nothing. Jesus is testifying to this reality, okay? To testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. So he's saying that there's a truth that he's manifesting. He's pointing to something beyond the material. And there are people who perceive what I'm doing. Everybody who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. It says, like that shepherd, remember? The shepherd, the sheep know the shepherd's voice, kind of a thing. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. He has gone way beyond the question, are you the king of the Jews? Remember, this is how question-answer discourse goes in the Gospel of John. And so he turns it into this huge thing about where truth resides. And notice he says, Jesus is the one who testifies to that truth. Everyone who belongs to it listens to my voice. Yeah. Their conversation actually continues, although we don't have that in our reading for today. But it's very instructive, though, to pick apart and see what this dialogue is all about. But in the context of the reign of Christ, the kingship of Christ, which is what we have for this Sunday, the last Sunday after Pentecost, Christ the King Sunday, it definitely fits because it addresses the kingship question more forthrightly than any of the other Gospels. All right, so last one. We're going to go to the book of Revelation, which is the last book of the Bible, right? In our canon, the book of Revelation. Now, whenever we read it, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's scary." No, it's not scary. What it is the book of Revelation is a book of written to a persecuted people, trying to give them hope. And it's all in coded language, coded, C-O-D-E-D, coded language, and because it's what do you call it? Reactional kind of literature. It's like it intentionally uses a lot of bad Greek also because it's intentionally trying to poke at the reality that says you're losing, but in reality. What the book is trying to say is like, but you're winning, really, you're really winning. Okay, we're in Revelation chapter 1. Now, we're starting in verses 4b to verse 8 in our lectionary reading, and I'm not going to read the first part, but what we basically have here is a salutation like you would have at the beginning of any letter. We're used to seeing those, especially in the writings of Paul. We're used to seeing those salutations in the writings of Paul. But here, we don't get the initial salutation. We get the expressions of grace to you and peace, which is from whoever and to whoever, grace to you. Okay, so what this was a writing from a man named John. We don't know what John. He seems to be on an island called Patmos. Some people think that means he was there because as a punishment. I don't know that it was necessarily that so much as he was just a preacher, an evangelist, and that's where he was. But there was definitely persecution happening. And this is something that was written to the 7 churches of Asia, of Ephesus and Philadelphia and Laodicea, and I can't name Smyrna and Thyatira. Wow, I can remember more than I thought, but I don't have those in front of me. But this is an epistolary kind of an address. Grace to you and peace from him who is and who was and who is to come, and from the 7 spirits who are before his throne, and from Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, the ruler of the kings of the earth. Ah, there we have it, the kings of the earth. All right, so obviously he who is, who was, and who is to come, and from the 7 spirits. That's an interesting thing, who are before his throne. Well, that's something that we get a little bit more of later when we get into the really funky stuff of the book of Revelation with the throne and the 7 spirits and trumpets and all kinds of things. From Jesus Christ, the faithful witness. Okay, remember, the book of Revelation is written to a people who are experiencing persecution. the question that faced people was, do I remain a faithful witness? Or do I recant? Do I take it back? Do I walk back my commitment to Christ, right? And our writer of John is wanting to say that Jesus demonstrates what the faithful witness looks like, okay? Now, yes, he was the firstborn of the dead and the ruler of the kings of the earth. There we go. All of that, the firstborn of the dead, that's quite a thing to say about Jesus, is it not? Faithful witness, firstborn of the dead, ruler of the kings of the earth. If you also stay as a faithful witness, you can count yourself also amongst those who stand by his benefits of being firstborn of the dead and ruler of the kings of the earth. To him who loves us and freed us from our sins by his blood and made us to be a kingdom, priests serving his God and Father, to him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. In this, it's as though he's like got to say his own little amen here. So to him who loves us, this is one of those little benedictory things. Loves us, freed us from our sins by his blood. So the reference here is to the death of Christ. Remember, we don't talk about kings as still having any influence after they've died. No king, it didn't happen. Kings didn't have influence after they died. When the king was dead, the king was dead. There's the new king, okay? So, when we see this reference to his blood, the idea, it reminds us of the fact that there's a different kind of king going on here. This is that king that died. But in his dying, it freed us, made us to be a kingdom, okay? So we are a kingdom, we have a king, and he has died, okay? And a kingdom of what? Of priests. Priests were the go-betweens. Priests were, in this sense, not an intention of saying a barrier between people and God, but those who have the closest access to God, okay? To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Now we have this statement, look, he is coming with the clouds. Every eye will see him, even those who pierced him. Yeah, again, a reference to the death. And on his account, all the tribes will wail. So it is to be. Amen. This is like a separate little song. This is an overall saying of it's going to be okay. Okay, everything that's happening, it's going to be okay. He is coming, and it says with the clouds. It's like with the clouds means it's like, there's nothing out in the sky until you see clouds. So there was nothing, and now there's something. So he's coming with the clouds. Every eye will see him. It is going to be unmistakable. There's no such thing as that spiritual coming. All those cults and wacko religious people who tried to predict a particular day on which Christ would return. And then after it didn't happen, what did they say? Well, it happened spiritually. Every eye will see him. Okay, this is what we're seeing. Yes, even those who pierced him. So even those who tried to kill the King of Glory, they will also see that, oh, that guy, he's back. Yeah, right? And on his account, all the tribes of the earth will wail. So this is tribes of the earth. To wailing, it's just an expression of something big happening. Like you don't really know what it is. It doesn't mean it's sad. Okay, wailing doesn't necessarily mean sad. So it is to be. Amen. All right. Now comes the last statement from the mouth of the Lord. I am the Alpha and the Omega, says the Lord God, who is and who was and who is to come, the Almighty. This expression of who God is the equivalent of saying, I am the beginning and the end. Alpha and Omega, those are like the A and the Z. This is an expression that in Greek that would say that you are everything. If you are the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, it's like in our biblical economy, what do we have? We have the Lord who created everything in Genesis, and so that's the Alpha, okay? So to say that I am the Alpha and the Omega, which means that I created this world, and this world will continue until I say it ends. So to say that he is the Alpha and the Omega means that he's the one that determines all of that, right? Who is and who was and who is to come. That is the nature of the name of God, Yahweh, the one who is, the word Ehia, I am who I am. I am who I am. I am who I am. I am who I was. I am who I will be. Okay, all of that is included in that. So that's the essence of what our writer is conveying about who this God is. You want to know what God you're serving, that you're being persecuted for? The only God that matters. The only God that matters. So you will not be, you have nothing to fear. So in this writing, which is intended to pacify people and to encourage them to go past the whatever afflictions they're experiencing, realize that the Lord that you are testifying to is the only Lord that matters. There's nothing on this earth that can matter, that can appear to be like, oh wow, this is exactly what God is like. No, it's not. There's no such thing as that in this world. Pale imitations maybe, but not the reality. That's what our book is telling us. So this is the ultimate expression of the kingship of God, of Christ, in that he manifests what God is actually, the reality of God. He is our little human link, okay? Jesus is our little, scratch that word, our link to what God is like, especially when we view it through his life and his death and the promise that his return is imminent, and it will vilify us, it will justify our expectations, and we will finally say, whew, wow, I'm really glad. That turned out really good. I'm really happy about that. Well, this is the way we're supposed to think about all of what's going on, is that we don't have to get down about it. We just need to stay faithful. As long as we stay faithful, we will see the victory that we are promised. And that is all I've got for us today on Christ the King Sunday, the reign of Christ here, the last Sunday after Pentecost. I'll see you in church. I'm preaching, so we'll see what that sounds like now, won't we? Until next time, peace.